eMarketer Field Guides help marketers understand how key MarTech, AdTech, and commerce tech tools are changing so they can make smarter purchasing decisions. Sponsor one today. To ensure your solution is top of mind for buyers, visit eMarketer.com/advertise to learn more.
We're already kind of seeing this happen. I don't know that I fully believe that it will spark any sort of a different conversation than has already not been sparked. But I do expect there to be more companies that say, nah, I'm not in on this. So I guess I may be half in.
Hey gang, it's Monday, September 23rd. Max, Evelyn, Ross, and listeners, welcome to the Behind the Numbers Daily, an eMarketer podcast. I'm Marcus. Today I'm joined by all of the senior analysts on our digital advertising and media desk. One of them is based in Philly. He's Max Willens.
Yo.
The other, living down in Virginia, is Evelyn Mitchell-Wolfe.
Howdy.
And just north of New York City, we have Ross Benish.
Hello, Marcus.
Wow.
Hello, New York.
That was the best one. Today we're talking predictions, but we start with today's fact. Wolfgang Mozart was how old when he composed his first piece of music in 1761?
Like 12.
7 or something. Yeah, something
5.
crazy young.
5?
5.
Yo.
He was 5 years old when he composed his first piece. By 6, he had performed before 2 imperial courts. He ended up composing over 600 pieces in his short life. He died at age 35, which means after starting to compose at age 5, he would go on to average 1 new composition every 2 weeks.
Holy cow.
You could check out the movie Amadeus, and I can't remember if they go in depth on that or how historically accurate it is, but it's there.
Oh,
Wow.
there we go.
They gave us that great Falco song.
That movie rules.
Oh, it does. Okay. Check it out. Anyway, today's real topic. Very specific, but highly unlikely predictions. 2024 Fall Edition, Shark Tank style, Part 1. In today's episode, we'll cover 3 very specific but highly unlikely predictions we expect to happen in the next 6 months or so. And then we'll have another 3 for you in tomorrow's episode. So how is this going to work? Well, each person, Max first, will have 60 seconds to pitch a very specific but highly unlikely prediction for 2024. And then the rest of us, me, Evelyn, Ross, and the folks listening, will decide if we are going to, quote unquote, invest/believe in his prediction. Then we move to the next contestant and repeat. So Evelyn will be next. Me, Max, and Ross will become the new panel. Each of our guests have 1 prediction for today and then another each on tomorrow's episode. So let's do it. But before we get to it, I just want to check in on our predictions we made in the summer.
Must we?
Sorry, Max. So one of Max's didn't go so well. So that would have been, he said none of Paramount's current suitors are going to wind up acquiring it and Shari is going to have to sell it piecemeal. Skydance Media is buying Paramount Global, which was one of its current suitors at the time. However, Max, you also said advertisers will not coalesce around the measurement standard for retail media until the aggregators' peak growth subsides and the next digital consumer privacy lawsuit will involve a retail media network. So that one's better.
We're saying there's a chance.
We are.
We are.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. Susie was on that episode as well. She said Nordstrom will go private in the next 12 months. We'll see. A few weeks ago, Alex Halverson of the Seattle Times reported that Peter and Eric Nordstrom offered to take the company private, committing cash and equity to the deal, valued at close to $4 billion. She also said to stop the leaky bucket, Starbucks will pilot drone deliveries in select cities. No updates there, but our Zach Stambor was writing that new Starbucks CEO Brian Niccol is prioritizing trying to reestablish Starbucks stores as the community coffee house. And then Paul was on that show. He said the NBA contract will go to Disney, NBCU, and Amazon, a major milestone. He nailed it. However, Warner Brothers Discovery is suing the league after its TNT channel missed out on the new deal, so that might change things. And then finally, he also said the publisher AI Gold Rush will continue. Publishers doing deals with AI companies, licensing deals with them. The week after that prediction came out, Time Magazine signed a licensing deal with OpenAI, and then in August, Condé Nast joined the party by signing a multi-year partnership with OpenAI. And we're not quite halfway through H2, so that one's going well for him as well. All right, folks, let's see if we can nail some more predictions. We're going to start with Max, and as me, Ross, and Evelyn transform into the Sharks into the panel. So, Max, what's your first prediction?
I predict that a company will publicly repudiate generative AI as a technology, thereby setting off a big conversation in tech and media about its efficacy and usefulness.
Okay. Why?
So We've already started to see in different corners of the media and tech ecosystems, people starting to wonder about the upside of this technology. I think the kind of most visible example of this was a report that Goldman Sachs published in June, in which its main thesis essentially was that Gen AI is not going to deliver value or results that justify the scope of investment that has already been made in the technology. Mm-hmm. Some of the experts they interviewed for it predicted that few, if any, true breakthrough uses will come within the next 10 years. And since then, there have been little kind of signals that the hype that pushed this technology into our consciousness is starting to run up against reality. The Information reported in September that somewhere between 0.1 and 1% of Microsoft 365 users are using the AI features in Copilot. And so you have, on the one hand, you have this signs that adoption is really not kind of continuing at the pace that rollout did. And then you have kind of the lingering environmental challenges. So there was some reporting that came out earlier this month about how the energy needs for Gen AI are so significant that coal-fired power plants are now coming back online to meet the energy needs required to power the data centers that make this tech possible. And I think if you add with enough of those in the air, it will kind of give a CEO or a CMO cover to essentially publicly step out and say, we don't think this is good for our customers, or we don't think this is good for the planet. We're not going to use it. And provided they, do it from the right perch or platform, I think this could set off a big conversation in and around tech and media about whether this technology is really going to be all it's been cracked up to be.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that Goldman Sachs number saying tech giants and others spending about $1 trillion on AI capex in the coming years, is it worth it?
That's a lot of capex.
I think it's certainly a fair point. I also looked at this as how much are users going to be bothered if companies are investing in it less. And it seems like the adoption of Gen AI, the adoption is not on a great trajectory because it's already started to slow. And I think in large part because folks don't really have so we don't know what to use it for. So if you look at social media adoption, they knew what to use it for. That got close to 50% of the population using it before growth slowed to single digits. Same for digital video. However, Gen AI adoption will hit a single digit growth in 2 years' time and would have only reached 37% of the population. So it's slowing a lot faster than some of those other things that we do with media and technology because folks don't know how to use it or why they should be using it. And there's some research from MIT Tech Review and Boston Consulting Group showing that when you ask people, what do you use Gen AI for, especially in the marketing world, it's kind of everything, which means it's also kind of nothing. So yeah, I think I'm with you on this one so far.
I have a question. Do you have any thoughts on what size company you're predicting will repudiate Gen AI?
I mean, I think it'll be a company that's well known, certainly within a certain industry, but potentially nationally. So
nationally, okay.
You could see something like, I could see a movie studio like A24, for example, stepping out and saying, we are not going to distribute any movie that involves Gen AI in its production. And that's a pretty easy, position for them to take. I mean, I think it's likely that whatever company does this is going to be in media. It's possible also that something that has more of a history of environmental, strong environmental stances like Patagonia, for example, could step out and do something similar. But because I think the kind of stance would be most momentous in a field like media where the kind of potential disruption is greatest, it doesn't, I don't think, mean that much if like a forestry company comes out and says it. But I do think that it's likely to be a, reasonably well-known company within the, media and advertising sector.
Okay. I ask because I've already been hearing companies doing an unbranding thing where I think I can't remember exactly what the name of the company was, which I think says something in and of itself, but it was a creative, a marketing creative company saying, we will not be using Gen AI. We are going to support our, creative professionals and the humans behind what makes good creative and stick to that vision. And it was very well supported or a well received sort of announcement. And it was sort of pitted against something like Adobe, which is leaning very heavily into the AI boom. So we're already kind of seeing this happen. I don't know that I fully believe that it will spark any sort of a different conversation than has already not been sparked. But I mean, I do expect there to be more companies that say, "No, I'm not in on this." So I guess I may be half in on
I'm
this.
half in too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ross?
Well, yeah, I'm going to be uninteresting here and also go half in because I do believe that there will be a company, maybe more than one, that will make a stance like Max is saying, but I'm not convinced that it will impact the broader trend around everyone freaking out about AI or everyone investing in AI. So what I would need convincing to buy all in would be if one company does it, so what? Why is that actually going to affect anything?
I guess I will retreat to me originally saying it will spark a conversation, because I think it's fair to say that it would be a lot to have one company's statement or position cause a widespread kind of slamming on the brakes. But I do think it's possible that if someone did this at the right time, steps out at, say, like Davos, for example, where everybody loves to, spend too much time picking apart what immensely wealthy and powerful people say. I do think that it would be a platform like that could potentially be a great place to, force everybody to opine about it for several days.
Or CES.
Yeah.
There you go.
One of the two.
Yeah.
All right. Well, half an investment point from each gives you 1.5. That's not a bad start, Max. Let's go to Evelyn for your first prediction.
My prediction is that Google will start testing its new consent workflow in Chrome right after the holiday season without warning. So to catch everyone up, instead of blocking third-party cookies wholesale for all Chrome users, Google will offer a quote-unquote new experience in Chrome whereby users can opt into or out of third-party cookies. And that means that while Google won't kill third-party cookies in Chrome, consumers effectively will. Marcus and I discussed the situation on an episode of this podcast that aired back in August. So if you need more information or you want to, hear about some data on the subject, I would go listen to that. But the end result of all of this will be largely the same as it would have been if Google had just stayed the course with its original plan. What we don't know is when this will happen. I predict that Google won't rock the boat again before the holiday season, but I think that once the holidays are over, we'll start seeing signs that Google is getting ready to launch its new consent workflow. From Google's initial statement, it seems like it's working with regulators and industry stakeholders to fine-tune the language and look of this prompt, but I think we might start seeing it out in the wild either before we get a formal statement or timeline update from Google, or like on the same day as the new experience is launched. That's basically what happened with AI overviews when the feature had been in beta with no formal launch timeline communicated, and then Google used its I/O event as a springboard to introduce the feature. And Google also has a recent track record of making important announcements right before earnings season, so I think that's what we're going to get with this as well.
I think I'm half in here, 100% with you on the timing. Mm-hmm. They're not going to, freak anybody out by doing this in Q4. I will say, though, that given the immense scrutiny that the business finds itself under, particularly, the role its ad tech business plays, I think that they're going to kind of over communicate here. And I'm curious why you think there won't be warning. Is it just to what you were saying earlier, that they have a track record of kind of, springing SGE, for example, on people?
Yeah, I think it's just recently, the last year, there's been a lot of springing things without enough warning. And also where this is concerned, there is no amount of warning that will be enough. So I think even if there were some sort of announcement, like when Google originally communicated that it was, making a U-turn on its cookie plans, it was received as if it were like a with no warning kind of change, even though there had been signs for months. So I think that's sort of what it's going to be. It's going to feel like, even if we see signs moving up to it, that when the prompt actually hits the marketplace, I don't think it's going to be like a, hey, get prepared. We're going to, in 3 months' time, we'll start putting out this prompt. It'll be like, we've worked with regulators as of today. This prompt is now available for however many percentage of users. And I think part of that is because they haven't communicated a timeline at all around this yet, that they'll be able to sort of jump in at the beginning.
Makes sense. I remain half in, but
this is supposed to be unlikely, right? Specific and unlikely.
Well, not the most unlikely.
Just
yes.
pivoting it, just making this whole trend around Google doing a thing that like everyone else has to react to makes me buy in, because that's happened many times.
So Ross, you're in completely? Full point?
Why not?
Why not? Wow. Frivolous.
I'll take it.
I'm a half in. So that gives you 2. I did that right. Yeah, that gives you 2 full investment points. So well played. Let's move to Ross. What you got for us, mate?
So in a year, Tubi will account for 2.5% of total time spent with streaming and TV as judged by Nielsen. And the reason that is significant is it'll put them ahead of everyone except YouTube, Netflix, and Amazon.
So I was looking at this. So YouTube, according to Nielsen's gauge that Ross mentioned, so Tubi is currently ranked in 7th place. So it goes, just for context for folks, in terms of the ranking of where Americans spend their time streaming things, basically watching TV, whether it's streaming or cable or whatever. YouTube's first with 11%. Netflix has 8%. Then it's Prime Video with 3%. And then, so that's your top 3. Then you've got Hulu, Disney Plus, and Peacock with just over 2%. So that's 4, 5, 6, and Tubi in 7th place with 1.8. Ross says that they can get to 2.5 within a year.
Yeah, I mean, they're free, so that's a huge advantage over the subscription services, over the number of people they can reach. And they have a very esoteric library of shows that the others are a little bit more standardized. So I don't think it's going to be anything rivaling Netflix, but I don't see why Tubi can't pull ahead of, something like Peacock or even eventually Hulu, because they have been the primary beneficiary of people wanting to find new stuff for free. Mm-hmm. And they have Fox putting a lot of money behind it because Fox has no subscription streaming service.
Yeah.
They have Fox Nation, but they have no general entertainment subscription streaming service.
Mm-hmm.
Does Tubi come preloaded on any kind of smart device or smart TV?
You usually have to download Tubi, just like you'd have to download Peacock or Netflix or those. It's not built in the same way that like Samsung TV Plus is when you turn on Samsung, or the Roku channel is, because they aren't an OEM. But so they'd have some discoverability issues to overcome.
I think that's the primary thing that is keeping me from going all in and I also am not a huge TV watcher or streaming watcher. So I feel like I am missing a good portion of upper funnel brand marketing that exists out there. But I don't think I've seen anything advertising Tubi at all in a very, very long time. Can't even remember the last time I've seen Tubi. So I just wonder how it can get there if it doesn't go harder on trying to make its name well known.
Mm-hmm.
I'm intrigued by the idea that a fast player will leapfrog a bunch of the sort of second tier subscription focused guys. I think that's, as a thesis, that's intriguing to me, but I am a little dubious on the timeline of this unless there's some kind of major coup on the content side, because it is a pretty compelling place to just kind of look for something random and pretty interesting to watch. But I do think that enough people have enough subscriptions that they're already paying for where they find stuff that they like. And so I think Tubi is going to have to, have some kind of surprise hit on its hands if it wants to get to 2.5%. So I am out.
So let me try to make the case both for and against Ross's point in the same little mini analysis. So, and maybe I can convince Max to actually give half a point. So I'm trying to help you out, Ross. So, which I don't know why, because we're supposed to be going against each other because it's Shark Tank, but whatever. All right. So my back of the napkin analysis, I was looking at what gains Tubi's made in the past year. So in terms of share, it went from 1.3 to 1.8 in the past year in terms of total time people spend watching TV. 1.3 to 1.8%.
And Ross, you're saying it'll get to how many again? How many points?
2.5, because these were supposed to be very specific estimates. So I wanted to go to a 10th of a percentage point.
Thank you.
We appreciate the decimal. In terms of ranking, actually fell one place though, from 6th to 7th. Peacock overtook it. Now, we can assume that's mainly just an Olympic bump because NBCU took the top 19 broadcasts in August, with Peacock seeing a near 50% increase in monthly viewers. In June, before the games, Peacock was actually 9th and then the 9th most popular streamer, and then jumped to 6th in August. So you can kind of throw that out. So Tubi currently in 7th. It should be able to leapfrog Peacock in 6th as Peacock comes back down to earth after the Olympics. I don't think it can overtake Disney Plus in 5th because they've been gaining share. However, Ross mentioned Hulu. Hulu has gone in the last year from 3.6% to 2.4% of Americans' TV time, so in the wrong direction in the past year. So I think Tubi could catch them, and they're currently in 4th. So all told, I think Tubi could be in 5th place with 2.1% share of total TV time.
Should have just let Marcus do this one.
Ross
He's so much better prepared than I was.
With 2.5. So I'm almost completely with you, but just a touch more conservative.
Yeah, I think I'll go half in because it seems like that's the broad direction things are going. I don't know if I'm fully there on the very specific components. Like 2.5% seems to be, that's a larger jump than Tubi has made in the last year. Percentage, like market share wise or time spent share wise, share of time spent wise. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
And just to be clear, because people might think, 2.5 isn't much. That's total television. So if you're looking at the streaming portion, you have to multiply that by almost 3 because streaming is like
smaller,
only about a third of the total time spent. Most of it's going to linear TV. So Tubi's share, if it got to 2.5, would actually be more like 6% of streaming or so.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, and linear TV is also losing share gradually over time. So, yeah, I think I'm going to stick half in.
Yeah, the amount that you would multiply it by will be different in a year for sure than it is right now.
Max, did we move you?
I'm a quarter of a point.
A quarter? That's not a thing.
Oh, yes, it is. Because my quarter is in Ross's coffers now.
The Federal Reserve tends to move interest rates in quarter points.
There you go. Yep.
Damn it, Ross.
So it is a thing.
That's right. I think, the thesis is about, a fast guy climbing, into that spot and surpassing the second tier of the paid guys is right. I was quibbling over percentage and time frame, but at the high level, I think Ross is onto something. So that's where my quarter point comes from.
All right, perfect. Thanks for inventing that. So let's recap. Max's a company will publicly repudiate Gen AI as a tech, sparking a big conversation about it. That got 1.5. Evelyn's got 2. That was Google starts testing its new consent workflow in Chrome after holidays without warning. And then Ross's Tubi will account for 2.5% of total time spent with streaming and TV. He got 1.25. To the listeners, I'm terribly sorry. I tried so hard to just make it 1 point investments, and then Susie invented the half point, and now Max has created this monstrosity of it. 1.25. Anyway, yeah, that's our predictions for today. We'll have 3 more very specific but highly unlikely predictions for you in tomorrow's episode. That's all we have time for now. Thank you to Max, Evelyn, and Ross. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks to Victoria, who edits the show. Stuart runs the team. Sophie does our social media. And thanks to everyone for listening in. We hope to see you for tomorrow's predictions episode of Behind the Numbers Daily, an eMarketer podcast.